Hello and welcome to the Blank Cover Network. I'm BCVDom and today we are talking about action figures, in particular Galactus, last year's Haslab. And this is my part 2 of my Galactus review. That's right, Galactus returns. Galactus Tokyo Drift, if you will. In that first video, it was my initial impressions of Galactus, how to put the batteries in the two compartments in the light up areas for Galactus, how to power him up, and how to change the face and head sculpts so that you could have Galactus in the display that you want him to be in. This video, I'm going to be doing my full-on pros and cons review of Galactus. Now I've had 3 days to play around with Galactus and the Heralds, see what works, see what doesn't quite work, looking in more depth at Galactus, at the whole build, the articulation, the quality and character of all three Heralds. But first, let's address the elephant in the room, Galactus's head. If you watch my first video, I could not get the head to light up. I couldn't get these light up features to glow in any way, shape or form. And after 3 days of messing around with it and changing the batteries, I can say it still doesn't work. This is a problem. And it's a problem because Galactus was made to order. Right? He is a Haslab. Now, I've tried several batteries in Galactus's head, so I've used some, old batteries. I then went to some what I thought were new batteries in the drawer, but maybe they'd been there for too long. They didn't work, so I went out and I bought some new batteries. They didn't work, and then I bought some new batteries again that were a better brand, and they haven't worked, all of which were AAA batteries. So I wasn't like trying to fudge the wrong battery in there. I was using the right batteries. None of them work. I don't want to start trying to open Galactus' head up myself because I'm no specialist, I'm no engineer. I don't want to break him further. So what I've done, I've emailed the Hasbro customer services team, the Hasbro Pulse customer services team, and then I'm waiting for their response. And I'll be really interested to see how they respond because Galactus was made to order. So I can't imagine they have lots of spare heads kicking about, but maybe they do because it's one element not building the whole body. Or maybe they'll ask me to send the head back to them so that one of their engineers could have a look because, they're specialists. They know what they're doing, and this was clearly a problem at the factory level because Galactus is in excellent condition. The plastic is all nice and minty fresh. The cardboard packaging had no dings or dents in it, so it was obviously transported really well, and the polystyrene casing inside the box was also fine. So it really has just arrived faulty from the factory, I think. That's my take on the whole situation. I've also spoken to friends who have Galactus, and they were like, yeah, I just put the batteries in and boop, it turns on. Like the chest piece. The chest piece works absolutely fine. I think the headpiece should be just as easy. Unfortunately, I think this might just be bad luck. So I'm hoping this is just me. Honestly, I'm hoping this is just me and this isn't like the Sentinel knee issue that was going around that everyone had to fix for themselves. And it did have a solution. From what I can see and from the comments underneath this video, no one else has had this problem. So I'm hoping I'm just a one-off and it'll be solved. But if you get your Galactus and the same thing happens to you, please do put something in the comments below because then it's clearly an issue with quality control. When I get a response, I will let you know how it goes, either in like a short, if it's just a quick update, or like a big Galactus update if I have some new information for you as well that sort of is a wider conversation. Until then, I'm gonna try and set his janky light head aside. I'm gonna try and be unbiased and do a proper review of Galactus. So let's talk articulation for a little bit before we get into pros and cons of Galactus in this review. In fact, since we talked about his head already, let's look at the head and the neck joint first and foremost. This head is a tough thing to move around, and it's because the joint is this. And what you can see here is actually a small platform on top of what looks like a ball joint, I think. So it can rotate around, look down, look up. It's actually got quite a range of motion. However, because Galactus's head is so big, once you put it on, he can look from side to side, but looking back, that's as far back as he can go without it coming off. And he can look down, but that's about as far down as he can look again without it popping off as well. Let's have a look at the Doom head, because that's a slightly different shape. Having the Doom head on Galactus, again, he can look side to side, but looking down is about the same, and looking back, because of the hood, very little motion there. So it's worth knowing that even though this has a lot of motion to it, you can't really use it that much because of the size of the heads themselves. Do you know what Galactus is a fan of? Ratchet joints. Oh yes, he is. Listen to this. He's got so many ratchet joints you'd think they're going out of fashion, and actually it means that he is sturdier than the average action figure, and that's what you want because he is heavy, he is tall, he's the biggest Marvel Legend of all time, and you need him to be sturdy. And actually his feet have quite a bit of articulation to them as well. You can get his feet, I mean, I'm not sure if you can see it. And his feet have quite a bit of articulation as well. In fact, you can move the sort of foot guards up so that you have lots more room to play with the feet. And then you can just move the feet up and down. And he's almost on point. He's a little ballerina, is our Galactus. So you can actually get him in more dynamic poses. So because his head doesn't move that much in terms of looking back or looking up, you can actually cheat it out by using the articulation in the feet to, you know, I mean, you're not going to squat Galactus. He's a very important man in his world, you know. But you can actually get him into more dynamic poses and cheat out the looking up or the looking down because of the foot articulation and the strength of all those ratchet joints. Plus, he has an ab crunch. It's not a massive ab crunch, but if you have a look, Galactus has a six-pack. That's right. Ab days are important days that Galactus never misses. And because of that, he can actually get a bit of crunch to his waist, to his sternum. And that's a pretty cool thing to have, because actually, if you want to have Galactus talk to Squirrel Girl, you know, something, one of those wild, iconic moments from the comic books, you can have him doing that. It's just about the right amount of articulation and design to make this articulation work. I would say the engineering that's gone into Galactus as a Marvel Legend is pretty incredible. There are no visible pins in Galactus. This is pinless tech. You know how much I love that Red Skull release from last year? That beautiful pinless buck? Well, this, they've stepped it up a notch. 31 inches, massive action figure, not a pin in sight. Okay, that's articulation done. Let's look at the pros and cons of Galactus. Starting with the pros, an obvious one, it's Galactus. We've got 31 inches interstellar cosmic god Galactus, devourer of worlds. Incredible. We've actually got Galactus. Now I know we've had other iterations of Galactus, but this guy is enormous. Just looking at the comparisons to other Marvel Legends in my collection, wow, he looks good. You're going to need a team. You're going to need the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, Heroes for Hire, Thunderbolts. You're going to need all of them to get together in order to take down Galactus. He is a centerpiece, and this height, the massive size of this character is something to behold. Wonderful, wonderful character to have in your Marvel Legends collection. And the second pro, tying into that, is it feels like a Marvel Legend. And that's kind of a strange thing to say, you might think, because, well, it's an action figure. But all you Marvel Legends fans out there will know Marvel Legends have a very specific type of look, engineering design, style, aesthetic, plastics being used, the variety of plastics. Marvel Legends look and feel so different to like the Power Ranger Lightning Collection or the Fortnite line, both of which are made by Hasbro. And this feels like a Marvel Legend supersized. There's something about it that just feels like they got a Marvel Legend, they made a 6-inch Galactus and blew it up. Another pro, the interchangeable faces, the interchangeable mouthpieces. That is a really nice touch. Again, maybe this adds to the Marvel Legends thing. Marvel Legends, sometimes my criticism of them is that they don't give my characters enough facial expression, and we'll come onto that for one of our heralds as well. But sometimes that's what's lacking, so that when we get a Marvel Legend who has a bit of an expression to their face, even if it's just focused or thinking, it makes a world of difference. Having the 3 different face pieces for Galactus actually gives us, the collector who wants to display a different type of Galactus to the next collector, gives us room to play. We've talked about articulation, but one thing which I didn't mention, but it is now on the pros list, the articulation of the hands. Galactus's hands have so much articulation because they're big enough. They've actually put a joint at every single knuckle. And then it sits on a super rotational join at the end of each finger where it connects to the hand itself. Like, there's so much that you can do with it. You can have Galactus make a fist, give you a thumbs up, flip you the bird. The articulation in the hands means that you can really put some personality behind Galactus when you put him in your display. Another pro, which I mentioned already in my first impressions video, the textures and the different plastics on Galactus. Wow, like really, really well done. Whoever designed this, so well done. There's so many lines and angles all over Galactus, and then some reflective metallic looking purple as well. So much has gone into the design and the use of specific plastics on Galactus that is just glorious. Like, what a fun action figure to have when that amount of detail, that amount of passion has gone into his construction. Putting Galactus down for a second because he is heavy. Wow. Another pro, and I'll come onto this towards the end of the video, the 3 heralds that you get with Galactus. Now, they were stretch goals, so Galactus should be worth the value of the Haslab price itself. You shouldn't need the 3 heralds to make up that price point. However, getting all 3 of them is a very nice perk. And overall, I really like all 3 heralds. I'll do a more detailed review of all 3 heralds a bit later in this video, but for now, on Galactus's pros and cons list, the heralds are definitely in the pros. So let's look at the cons. If you're enjoying this video, please do hit that like button, and if you fancy it, you can subscribe as well. And if you like this kind of thing, action figures, comic books, movies, more, then check out our podcast, The Blank Cover Podcast. What was that? The Blank Cover Podcast. Okay, let's get back to Galactus. A con of Galactus. Where to start? If only I had a bright idea. If only my head was working properly, a light bulb would go on inside my brain and I'd know what the first con is. Yeah, obviously, the first one, it might just be me, but his head doesn't work. How expensive was this figure? And it doesn't work? So obviously that might be unfair to other people where his head works, it's not a con, but for me, 100%, his head doesn't work, his head doesn't work, and you know what? His head doesn't work. That's con number 1. Con number 2 is it was a time, you know what? I'm gonna put his head down. Why am I holding this anymore? Con number 2 is it was a time sensitive sale. So obviously everyone who loved the idea of getting Galactus as a Haslab and could afford it, got it. And there will be other Galactuses sold on the second-hand market, brand new, because people bought 2 for that reason. Even then, there will be collectors just getting into Marvel Legends now, or getting into it in a year or 2 years' time, that would love to get their hands on Galactus, and it just won't happen. They're gonna have to find another way. Maybe the BAFs of Galactus, they'll be much cheaper because people got Haslabs as their centerpiece for their display. So there might be other solutions, but the fact that it's kind of cool, it almost could go on the pros list that you have this very special limited edition action figure for your displays, but it also irks me that other collectors who I want to have the best displays possible can't get their hands on Galactus. So that's a con. So for me, wanting to spread the love to other action figure collectors who have yet to start collecting Marvel Legends but will in the near future, or just people who couldn't afford the Haslab at the time but really wanted Galactus, that's the nature of the beast. So it's a con. It's not the biggest of cons, but I'm going to put it on this list because, you know, I'm a nice guy. Let's talk Heralds. These are the perks, the extra tiers, the fun little icing on the cake that is Galactus. So how good are these figures? In theory, with a crowdfunder, the main event, the thing that you're buying into, should be pretty much the cost of the base level of that crowdfunder. At least that's what Kickstarter and other similar platforms have done in the past. However, Hasbro make action figures. So at very little cost to them, in theory, they should be able to make 3 very good extra action figures for Galactus within the price point that they made for the Haslab last year. Do these 3 figures live up to that expectation? Let's start with the Silver Surfer. Pretty much a certainty in terms of which Herald you'd need to have in order to have a full Galactus display. You might not have any other Heralds at all, but you'll want the Silver Surfer. The Silver Surfer buck is nothing new, really. It, I think, is the buck that Sunfire and Human Torch and that lot are on. It's got the butterfly joints as well, which is nice, but you've got pegs aplenty. It is not trying to reinvent the wheel. It's trying to give you a very silver-coloured wheel instead. A silver-coloured wheel that rides a surfboard, a cosmic intergalactic surfboard, because that's what the Silver Surfer comes with. You get the Silver Surfer, and he comes with 2 fist hands attached to his body. He has 2 other pairs of hands that you can alternate your displays with. He has the silver surfboard, and he has a cosmic stand that sits on Galactus's hand. That is a really neat addition to an otherwise ordinary but necessary action figure. And that's where the tier gets its sort of A grade, as it were, because otherwise this is just the Silver Surfer. You know, I know it's hard to find the Silver Surfer out in the wild, but in theory it shouldn't be. He's a classic Marvel character, fairly well known. The one accessory you want with him is the surfboard. And yes, they give you the little cosmic ring thing that's purple instead of pink or orange this time. That's fine, but the fact that they give you this interesting purple stand that goes on Galactus's hand as well, that elevates this perk tremendously. The next Herald we're going to talk about is Frankie Raye, and I really like how they've executed Frankie Raye for this collection. The hair, let's talk about it. The hair is fantastic. Wow, this phenomenal, flaming, huge, textured, multicolored hair effect, of all things, is fantastic. It definitely makes the action figure top heavy, so you've got to do some clever poses or use a stand. But they thought of that because they gave you, similar to the Silver Surfer, a stand to use with Frankie Raye as well that you can place in Galactus's hand or just on a surface. It's almost like they thought, oh gosh, this hair fire is so exciting, we should do something else with this technique. And then they made this phenomenal fire stand for Frankie Raye. Similar to her hair, you can see there's lots of design that's gone into the fieriness of the flames on the plastic, plus the plastic that was used is a little translucent and there's different colors to it as well. And this last point is really a taste thing. I really like the gold marbled plastic they've used for Frankie Raye. I think that's really fun. It's different to any other action figure in my display. I don't have any other gold marbled Marvel Legends looking out from my Detolfs. But the one drawback, the one con I'd have with Frankie Raye is the facial expression. She's a little bland, a little not even focused or poker faced or something deliberately neutral. It's just kind of bland. And that's a bit disappointing because how much hair sculpt goes into this head, which means you definitely couldn't have a second head sculpt to swap out with this one depending on the needs of your display. Because of this massive mass of hair, of fire hair, you're only going to have the one head. So that's why it's a bit disappointing. I can kind of see the point behind it, that you want to give a more neutral head if you're only going to have one, but I think they could have had a more focused face. Other than that, I really like this tier, this extra perk in your Haslab collection. And last but certainly not least is Morg. And this is interesting because it's an entirely new sculpt. Frankie Raye, a little upgrade. She, I think, is on the Shriek body, the new standard female body for Marvel Legends. This is not the Vulcan body. This is a whole new beast, and what a beast. He's not as big as a deluxe, but he's chunkier than your average Marvel Legend, and that is a nice new sweet spot for Marvel to be able to use going forward. This innovation probably would have come regardless of the Haslab, because at some point they would have gone, hey, can we find a middle ground between those two action figures, but not release it as a deluxe, release it as your standard Marvel Legend. But here we go, because we reached the level of tiers that we did, we got Morg. And the sculpting in the upper body is wonderful. He's got this sneering grimace on his face. Again, like, why couldn't they have done something like that with Frankie Raye? Why couldn't they have given her an expression like they've done with Morg? We've only got this one head sculpt, and yet it works perfectly with this character. And he's got this just awful skullet hanging down his back, which is brilliantly well sculpted, well designed. It's just a bit of grey plastic. Maybe if you're a customizer, you might put a little bit of a wash on it, but it's so gross, it's so cringeworthy that I love this character even more because he's got a skullet. No extra hands for this four-fingered masterpiece. He comes with an axe though, but the one thing that I'd say is missing from Morg is a pair of fist hands. That would have completed this action figure at very little cost, I think. 2 fist hands and 2 C-cup hands would have been perfect for Morg, in my opinion, and then actually would have set this mold up for the future, for future releases of Marvel Legends as we're going to see them. And that actually brings me to my next point for all of you. I don't know who else you could use this mold with. Right? Like, he's so specific. Forget the head sculpt, that can change, but the body shape on top is so specific. What other Marvel characters could use the Morg mold? So, if you think you have an answer or a suggestion to that, put it in the comments below. Be like, from, this video or from pictures, if you don't have Galactus yet, or when you do get him, be like, I think you could use that mold for this character, supervillain or superhero. Let your brain flow free as you figure out what else they could do with this mold, because it's wonderful, but it's so character specific. And looking further down at his legs as well, it's all pinless. Now we're getting all these wonderful new molds, these new bucks that are pinless. The future's looking good there, ignoring price increases. So overall, I really like all 3 Heralds. They have a little drawbacks each, but I'm very happy that they were included as tiers. Tiers of extra action figures really makes this Haslab even more fun. I'm sure we'll have more YouTube videos to enjoy as Galactus arrives at people's doorsteps. And actually, I should have said, one other pro is the artwork on the box itself. God, that is beautiful. I know I alluded to it in my previous video, the first impressions, how to get Galactus ready for your display video that I did a few days ago. If you haven't watched it, go check it out now. But it's still worth talking about, because if not as a tier, but as an extra perk, they said, we give you the artwork as a cutout inside or on the back. Oh, I would get that framed and put on my wall so fast. It is nice that they gave us the backdrop on the reverse of the cardboard packaging. Like, that's actually a pretty decent thing to do. They've given us this cosmic backdrop. Really nice touch, and that at no extra cost. That wasn't a tier. There you go, that is my review of Galactus and the Heralds. I will keep you posted as to what solution Hasbro Pulse give me to my broken head, my faulty headlight for Galactus. And if you can think of any other Galactus head puns, put them in the comments below. Thank you very much. That'll help me laugh all the way until I get a new Galactus head. Until that time, thank you so much for watching. If you could hit that like button, please do. That really helps channels like mine. And I'll be back with another video very soon.